it off and away they go.
Extremely loose. He's managed to hold on and they get
He missed the complete that. He's crazy stuff.
Side Freitas is on the grass on the infield floor. He slides through. He tags Richard Eck.
There is a fabled prize among race car drivers that is thought to send a person instantly into legend if they can obtain it. Win 3 distinct and very different races: the Indianapolis 500, the Grand Prix of Monaco, and the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Only one driver in history has managed the Triple Crown so far, but today it isn't the 24 Hours of Le Mans prestige. But today, though it isn't the 24 hours, Le Mans prestige entices all comers to try their hand at it in a pair of daunting sports cars. We turn back the clock to the late 1980s for an hour as we get ready to watch round 1 of the iRacing Kamel GT series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth today is Sean Crackers Ambrose. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Sean, it's Le Mans. It's hard to encapsulate, but try your best.
I'm going to give it a shot, Joe. Circuit de la Sarthe. Got a little something going on there right now, actually, as we speak. But right now, we're focused on this 30-minute race around this 6.47-mile circuit. 13.63 kilometers on the metric scale there. Joe, you talk about one of the more challenging tracks ever. It's high speed. A couple of really interesting chicanes to deal with on a very long straightaway. 33 turns around this circuit. It's going to be a 30-minute race, and well, the Audis get around in just over 4 minutes. The Nissans about 3.5 minutes, Joe. So we'll definitely see a lot of closing on traffic here during this session. But real quick, let's hop on board the GSRC Nissan and take a lap around Le Mans.
All right, we've got Clayton McLeod in the GSRC Nissan, so let's do a lap around Le Mans. Though the front stretch is by far not the longest straight on the track, you gain quite a bit of speed flying along here. Hold the car off to the left to give yourself a nice wide angle into the Dunlop curve, and then throw out the anchors to slow it up for the Dunlop chicane. Be careful with the sleeping policemen at the apexes because they can damage the car. Over the hill, we dive under the Dunlop Bridge and then plunge down into the Chapel Rundown. That leads directly into the Forest S's where the line is all important. The hump at the exit will be particularly tricky with the immense power of the Nissan's turbo. Then there's Tertre de Rouge, which goes by lightning fast in this car. It's no less critical to your lap time because it takes you onto the long Mulsanne straight. But this straight has been broken up by a pair of chicanes. First is the Forza chicane, which requires some great bravery on the brakes to send the car in quickly. Hug tight to the middle apex, and then try not to spin the tires getting back to the power. Not much to see until the Michelin chicane, which is the same as the Forza chicane, but mirrored. Same approach. Try to carry speed into the first apex, get the car set up in the middle, and then press the gas as gently as you please to keep that turbo from looping you around. That'll then take us to the Mulsanne corner. With all the downforce on the Nissan, you can wait until astonishingly late to get on the binders. Even still, the car is not much use in the gravel, so take care to be tidy through here. Being able to confidently get to the power off the corner is very important, since you won't be braking until Indianapolis. You'll need a big lift for the kink, hold the car off to the right, and then try to safely slow it down for this treacherous bend. Switch sides quickly because Arnage comes up fast. This is one of the slowest corners of the track and embarrassingly easy to loop the car in these lower gears. Smooth throttle application will be very important. Finally, there's the Porsche curves. They start with a scary fast entry, but be sure to hug the inside to set up for bridge. Be brave and keep your foot in it, just don't clout the big blue wall to the outside. Lift as you transition into karting and continue to bleed off speed as the corners get tighter. Take care not to drift too wide in the left-hander or you can get a slowdown penalty. After that, you're flat out through Maison Blanche, and then you get a short breather to get ready for the Ford chicane. It's tempting to take the car in too fast through this first part, but you've got to keep it planted to set up properly for the second part. Don't take too much curb to keep from damaging the car, and then be sure to nail your exit to keep your momentum up on the pit straight. As we cross the line, we've now finished the lap around Le Mans. As you can see, quite a long lap, even cutting some bits out on the faster car. around here, so they won't be able to get very many in the half hour that they'll be racing today as we fly under the Dunlop Bridge here. And Sean, with it being a long track, I have to assume there's maybe going to be some passing opportunities along the way. Where are you expecting most of the drivers to be attempting it?
Well, the first really good opportunity is the Dunlop chicane itself when we get started here early, but it's really all about the back straightaway here, the Muslin Straight, now broken up by the Forza chicane and the Michelin chicane. Those are great opportunities to take advantage of your opponent. You'll get that draft down the straight, and you'll take advantage of that by slingshotting them and getting position into those chicanes. The Ford chicane, when you get back to the start-finish line, another good opportunity there because, listen, there are only a couple really good ways through there, and you don't want to take one of the bad ones because you hit those huge curves down there. It'll get your car not only offline, but in the air and probably damaged.
Here we can see the cars are in the midst of their qualifying right now. Keith Ritchie running. Actually, I remember seeing this Miller Lite scheme on cars before. This was always a favorite of mine. It's too bad they can't quite get the metallic shine that they did in the real world, but I loved that scheme on that car growing up. Strodbeck here, join us. Brian Strodbeck, the Ohio driver, racing the Audis today. I'm not sure if some of these cars are going to be able to finish these qualifying laps. They've at least got one, and if they got it clean, Sean, but it's a long lap around here.
It is. Almost seems like the qualifying session could be maybe about a minute and a half to 2 minutes longer. Because I don't think, at least the Audis, I don't think they're going to be able to get 2 full laps in.
So as the clock ticks down, Ove Traingere just coming off of a disappointing race in the Lotus 49 an hour or so ago. Going to try his hand here in France.
Had a great run going there in 3rd place, and then it all went bad, didn't it, Joe?
I was disappointed to see after he was fighting so hard. And you can see we have quite an international feel to this series. DS driver out there, Californian John Hill, a regular in this series, driving these cars, going to be back once again for this season. Now, you mentioned, we talked about the length of this, and you mentioned the traffic, Sean. Do you think it's going to cause problems between the classes since they have so many long straights between these cars? Or do you think there could be places where the Nissans are severely held up?
Well, I think I honestly think in the Porsche curves, you always see faster classes get hung up in there. It's the slower cars. You want to try and get out of the way, but there's not just a really good opportunity through there. You aside from just stopping off in the grass, you've got to stay in your racing line, and if you're in your line and you're racing like you should be, it's going to be tough for faster cars coming up on you. And the closing rate of these Nissan on the Audis here at Le Mans is it's pretty intense, Joe.
20 seconds left, and I'm just checking in to see what drivers are going to be able to get across the line here. John Hill and Steve Bycroft both are going to be able to cross and get a time in, although Hill did not get it. Yes, he did get a clean lap already. His timing just showed up on it. A number of drivers who are going to have to start from the back of the field because they did not get a time in as the checkered flag comes out, and that is going to be it for these guys. So let's go through the grid. Keith Ritchie, no surprise there, putting it on pole with Rob Olenek starting on the outside of row 1. Steve Bycroft is going to be starting in 3rd. Last second lap got him up to there with Marco Kika in 4th. Pedro Vieira in the 5th position, followed by Bas Slob starting on the outside of row 3. 7th is going to be Philip Lake with Dave Peterson starting in the 8th position. Clayton McLeod will be starting in 9th, and rounding out the top 10 is John Hill. Michael Kopak will start this race in 11th. Hideki Koivisto, another driver jumping from the 49 here over to the Nissan, starting in 12th today. And then David Beatty is going to be starting in 13th before we have a few cars that will be starting at the back of the Nissans. Alexander Geisler, John Keefe, Alexander Topher, Jonathan Nolan, and Bruce R. Bouchard going to be the last lows. Let's go to the GTOs.
All right, we'll do it. And Ove Traingere going to start 14th today, followed by Coryat there in 15th. Ben Laughter, 16th. Dexter Castro going to start 17th. Brian Shanahan 18th. Alexander Geisler going to start 19th today. Brian Strodbeck 20th. And then keep moving on down the list here. You've got Andy Purz, Andy Purz 21st, John Keefe 22nd, Alexander Topfer. We already covered him, actually. Let's go back to Jonathan Bikoff there, 24th, Eduardo Martinez 25th, and Stephen Jones 27th.
They thankfully will start them with their class, so even though the grid looks mixed up, we promise you they will have the Nissans starting with the Nissans and the Audi GTOs starting with the Audis. So they're going to start behind the pace car, rolling start here at Le Mans, as the roof pace car just getting spooled up. I'm going to take off here in just a moment. Everybody out there on the grid. I see one empty spot. I'm not sure who that belongs to. It looks like the very tail of our GTP field, so it should be Bruce Bouchard starting from the pit lane, I believe. They work their way out of Arnage towards the Porsche curves. And I always love, Sean, just all the foliage and trees that are just right next to this track really gives this place an incredible amount of character.
And a pretty good hit in the frame rate too, Joe. Well, I mean, the speculation is that they put all the trees in here, and that maybe the circuit itself maybe had a little something to do with that. It's absolutely beautiful to drive around here with all the bells and whistles turned on.
I can attest to that as they work their way through Bridge now. And pretty soon we will go racing for 30 minutes here for round one of the Kamel GT series here on iRacing. Thanks for joining us on the Global Sim Racing channel. This series last season, we covered about the last half of it, and every single race was a stunner. These guys put on a great show. We're expecting nothing less. They now come out of karting up towards Maison Blanche, and as is tradition here at Le Mans, I believe we're going to get the Air Force flying overhead. Waiting to hear the jets fly by pretty soon here. A little bit of chatter from the drivers over the radio between each other. Now we've got the jets flying by, with the tricolor streaming away from them, giving us a nice run by that Michelin sign here at Le Mans. Good timing because they've just come into the Ford chicane. Pace car has peeled off. Keith Ritchie is going to have control of the field as the green flag waves. Gets a great jump on Rob Olenek. In fact, a fantastic jump on the rest of the field as Bycroft and Marco Kika are left in the dust.
Ove Trengrig got a nice break there to start. Coriat following. Dexter Castro settles into third. Strodbeck already up to fourth.
So though it's our GTO field kicking things off as well, most everybody single file. John Hill in a side-by-side battle with Michael Kopak in 10th and 11th. As it looks like Kopak is going to come out the worst of it as he drifts wide through the Forest S's. And already he's under threat from Hideki Koivisto, who sneaks by on the outside. A little bit of action in the mid-pack, but everybody up front of the GTP class getting very much single file early on in this race.
Oh, Alexander Geisler getting turned around, Joe, out of Tetra Rouge.
And he had a little bit of help, actually. He got a punch in the back from Bruce Bouchard. We're going to see on the replay, they're heading down Chapel Rundown into the Forest S's. This is going to go into Tetra Rouge. You can see the side-by-side action just ahead of them. That's Alexander in the Haviland machine. And the blue car behind is Bouchard, just up into the braking zone, turns him around. Thankfully, a light touch doesn't hit the barrier, and he's able to get it going after the GTOs stream by. Keith Ritchie is still your overall leader, but he's not been able to run away from Olenek, who's still within half a second.
Oh! Alexander Topfer around. Ooh, out of the Michelin chicane there, Joe.
He's trying to get it going. His cars are going side by side behind him. Here we go. Replay. Was there more contact here? No. I have to imagine with the turbo lags that these cars experience, it must be tough coming out of those chicanes.
Oh, big battle in a GTO. Brian Strodbeck looking to the inside. Hot. Woohoo. Puts the move on him out of the
and Ott's out of control.
Oh.
Oh, a big accident coming out of the Mulsanne corner. Number of cars getting involved in that. Looks like Corey Ott and Alexander Topher getting involved.
Yeah, Topher loses it coming out. The car gets loose. He can't recover. And oh, what a mess. Topher's car destroyed.
And Dexter Castro took a huge thwack. I'm not sure how much damage he had. There we can see it. Wow, it looks like he might have gotten away with some net code because he just plowed into that machine.
Car I'm looking at right now looks fine, Joe. I think you may be right. He may have gotten away with a little help for some net code there. It was a really, really wild incident.
You know, Dexter paints some good schemes, but I'm not so sure about that yellow on pink rims there. Meanwhile, Strodbeck is not giving up on Ove Trengaray. In fact, he's gotten past Trengaray and has now taken the lead.
Just before the Porsche curves there, Joe, he put the move on him.
Marco Kika also having some problems coming out of the Ford chicane. Lots of action, lots of problems here early on. This was a self-spin. Once again, the car getting loose under power. He's resumed in 7th position. Well, with only one lap done, we still have 25 minutes left to go. You can see Keith Ritchie now is finally starting to stretch away from Rob Olenek. In fact, he's lost about 3 seconds since we last checked in. I wondered if he got a slowdown somewhere along the way.
Very possible. Of course, Joe, you know there are a lot of opportunities here to get one of those slowdown penalties. It's one of those things we don't get a good look at, unfortunately. All the data that we can pull, we don't always know if that's going on, but that could always be the answer.
Well, this has put him back into the clutches of Steve Bycroft. You can see behind the Toyota of Olenek, the Indiana driver is now within about a second. The ride on board, looking just over his shoulder.
Back to GTOs. Trengaray making a move on Strodbeck. Down into Forza. Here we go. He's pulling out on him. Slingshots him down the straight. Forza coming up. Got a break here real soon. Just about now.
Ove nice and tidy on the brakes. Gets it to both apexes. All 4 wheels finding power, and he accelerates away out of Forza. Sean, how much of a hole in the air do these Audis punch? They look a little boxy, so I'd assume it'd be significant.
It's good. It's good. So watch Strodbeck cutting back right here. Gonna take him back. Did that all in the toe. Slingshots out. Gonna move back over. Set up for Michelin. Start slowing the car down. Get on those curbs. Get right back to the right.
And this working together between the two has allowed them to gap Dexter Castro in 3rd by about 4.5 seconds, already with only a lap and a half gone.
Yeah, Dexter going to need a little bit of help. He needs a dance partner. Eduardo Martinez behind him, but he's not as fast, so that's going to be tough.
Oh, problems for Boss Slob. In Indianapolis, did he hit anything? He's coming back on track. Oh, he was side by side with Philip Blake. We're going to see the replay.
He almost hit Philip Blake, and then Philip Blake slides.
Oh, he did hit him.
Arnage. Wow.
There we saw the contact right there in Indianapolis, and you're right, Philip Blake in the very next corner got extremely sideways. We're going to watch onboard Boss Slob. This is such a marginal corner. Look at that, way out into the dirt and dust. Can't slow the car down, and boom. this was a bit more of contact and problems than I expected this early in the race, Sean.
Strawbeck just makes a small mistake out of it, and Arnage opens it up for Trengrade. Sorry,
Also had
Joe.
A spin from Alexander Geisler, who's been struggling. He's stuck in the GTOs. He went wide through Indianapolis, came back on track, and poor Eduardo Martinez got into the back of him. Meanwhile, we're watching that battle for the lead as it looks like Trengrade trying his best to get around Strodbeck. Can't quite do it.
The man from Cleveland doesn't give up the space on the track very well, does he, Joe?
No, he does not. He has been a teammate of mine. In fact, here at Le Mans before in a different car. And I can tell you, Strodbeck is a fierce fighter. Ove is going to have his work cut out for him, despite Ove being a dominant force in the past in this machine. Got a car off track in front of them. That's David Beatty. He's in a Nissan, so he should be able to get away from these guys. Just a momentary cut course. And one thing we've seen as we've covered this series, Sean, is these cars do tend to produce mistakes. These older machines are just not as precise as the newer ones. No,
they're not. They're blunt instruments, Joe. To put it just quite frankly, that's what they are. These are a throwback to an earlier time when, let's just say, technology wasn't near what it is now, and drivers drove these cars. You really had to manhandle them. And I got to be honest with you, the Audi is a car you have to manhandle, but the Nissan here is just unhinged. The speed and the power at which it gets around makes it just a real beast to handle.
Check out Andy Pears on screen in the blue machine trying to chase down Ben Laughter in the black car. He's been hounding him through the first part of the lap, but now they get onto the Mulsanne straight. Will that draft help him? He's got a little bit of damage on the front, and I have to think that that's going to hurt him on his top end. Oh, and he must have got a slowdown penalty. He's pulling back.
Yep.
Have to get your marks right. Cannot swing too wide in some portions, including right here on the entry to Forza. You can get a slowdown for entering too wide. You'll see little cones at the side of the road that these drivers have to respect, marking the track limits. iRacing will automatically tell you how much time to give back if you go too far and abuse what it considers the edge of the track.
Joe, we could probably just keep I wish we could just dedicate a camera to the battle between Strodbeck and Ove Trengrade, because they're halfway through a lap. They've already changed position, I think, 3 times now, as they make their way now down to the Mulsanne corner.
Braking for this slow right-hand bend. And both of them, look at just how precise they managed to be in these cars. Impressive stuff. And Sean, with this being so easy to swap back and forth, what would your strategy be? Do you want to be in second place coming into the end, as we see now Ove going to take it back once again?
Yeah. Yeah, you want to guess right. You want to guess right and hope you made the right guess to make the last move, and hope that your opponent doesn't make one last daring move that winds up in taking both of you out, possibly in the Ford chicane.
Oh, we got some action in the GTPs. Boss Slob been working on Marco Kika. Finally gets by him coming out of the final corner, but it's going to go right back to him, it looks like, as the draft is allowing Marco to catch up to him, weaving back and forth, trying to find a way by, and isn't able to get him into the braking of the Dunlop chicane. Just ahead is Jonathan Bykoff, and the Audi could come into effect here with the traffic slowing up the car of Boss Slob, and unfortunately Marco not able to take advantage of it. So they are able to finally get themselves some clear track before they hit more traffic, and Slob starting to streak away. Remember, he had that problem coming into Indianapolis a couple laps ago, so he's trying to make up ground.
Well, and when you're trying to make up ground, I know we keep talking about it, but you've got to be aware of how you're getting through the chicanes. It's so easy to lose time there and get a penalty. Those penalties generally worth about a second to a second and a half.
We see Philip Lake in 4th position, trying to hold off Clayton McLeod in 5th, just behind him. And Sean, you talk about getting through the chicanes right. What curbs around here tend to be dangerous for the Nissan? Because this car seems to be a little bit susceptible, kind of low slung to getting damage if you clobber certain ones. Are there any that tend to mess up the aero?
Well, certainly, I talked about it when we started just before the race. Of course, in the Ford chicane there, if you get off and you hit those big curbs, that'll definitely damage the car. Through Arnage, I think those curves there can certainly get you off, maybe cause a little bit of damage, and maybe the Michelin the exit of Michelin, I think you can get into trouble there as well.
So drivers needing to be wary of just where they put the car. McLeod starting to drop off of Lake slightly. We got some talk between Laughter and Pears potentially here. And actually, if we could check in on that briefly, it looks like Pears must have made a mistake because he's now a second and a half behind Laughter and dropping.
Yeah, trying to see what happened to Pears there. He's got some damage on the left front, obviously. You see there on the screen. That's got to be slowing him down.
I'm not sure if it's happening on broadcast, but on my screen, Pears is having slight connection issues, blinking in and out. That's got to be distracting him. Thankfully for Ben Laughter, with him having pulled away, he doesn't have to worry about Andy's connection issues unless he closes in on him, which he gets a little bit of time coming into the Michelin chicane, looking good under the brakes, does Andy Pears. In fact, good out of the chicane. Whatever he has lost, he's starting to gain back. It was a second and a half. It's now down to 9/10.
Okay, well, maybe he was having a brief issue there. It seems to have settled itself now. You know, one thing I noticed driving the Audi around here, Joe, really hard to keep the car in a straight line when you're heading down the long straightaway. It wants to drift a little bit over the crest of the track. It's a little bit of a sketchy drive, to be honest with you. You gotta really be on point and work the wheel a bit.
Wow, side by side through Indianapolis, not an easy one, but they managed to make it work. Ove coming out second and Strodbeck coming out first. But yeah, one of these things, with it being a natural road for that Mulsanne straight, there's a crown in the road, and I don't think a lot of people necessarily realize that.
Yeah, and you know, you want to be on top of the crown, you want to be to the left of it, to the right of it. Again, it makes the Audi feel a little unbalanced. The Nissan a bit wider of a car. You don't feel it quite as much in that, I think, as you do the Audi.
Oh, and we understand that Laughter missed a shift. That's going to allow Andy Pears to close up on him. Another thing that these Audis are notorious for, you talked about the weaving they have over the crown of the Mulsanne straight. Getting the shifts right in these cars can be so difficult. And I think Laughter missed another one there.
Yeah, Laughter's struggling here, Joe. Struggling big time. Andy Pears is right on his tail now. And I haven't seen any connection issues out of him since we started following him.
Pushing hard to see if Laughter, or if Pears can get himself into fourth. They're about 9 seconds back from Dexter Castro, so they're probably not going to be able to get up to the podium without a mistake. Laughter peeked his nose into the Ford chicane. They're going line astern through there. Can Laughter get the run off to try and leave him behind? They're about dead even. And already, Sean, these races go fast. Half an hour in, half an hour race. We're halfway through.
More than
the 15
halfway,
minute.
Joe.
Yeah.
We're running out of time, Joe. We're running out of time.
With that, why don't we go through our top 5 of each class? Keith Ritchie is still your overall leader. That Miller Lite machine has been all by his lonesome for quite a while because Rob Olenek dropped off, lost the draft. He's now 6.5 seconds behind. Steve Bycroft rounds out your podium. He's been trying to hound Olenek, but hasn't been able to hold on to try and put the pressure onto him. Philip Lake running fourth. He's dropped Clayton McLeod after McLeod got a slowdown penalty in the Ford chicane last lap. And McLeod will round out our top 5 in the GTPs.
Okay, let's look at the GTOs here. Ove Trengray just became your leader. He just passed Brian Strodbeck. Brian Strodbeck going to probably pass him here again down into the Michelin. So we'll keep an eye on that. But that's 1 and 2. Dexter Castro sitting all alone in 18th. Makes me think of an old 70s song. I'm not going to sing it. Dexter sitting there in third. He's got quite a ways to catch him, about 8 seconds now, but behind him, Ben Laughter sits 10 seconds back down the track, and 17 seconds actually, and Ben is sitting 4th in class, and then Andy Purrs battling with Ben and a couple seconds back, but he sits 5th in class, Joe.
That's what it looks like here halfway through the race. These are late 80s, early 90s machine Sean's. I'm surprised you didn't want to break into All By Myself.
That's where I was going there.
Well, I didn't know that was a 70s song. I thought that was...
Yeah, I think that one's from the... Oh, geez, you're going to make me Google it, aren't you?
Anyways, let's get back to the racing. Let's look at Boss Slob, who is right now actually behind Marco Kika. There must have been a pass that we missed, because last time we looked, pretty sure that Boss was ahead of him as they worked their way under the Dunlop Bridge. Down through the Forest S's. Oh, drifting a little bit wide, Marco. That's going to hurt his exit out of the Forest S's, trying to get the power down. Boss Slob getting right up behind him through Tertre Rouge. Now onto the Mulsanne straight. Oh, and Marco was way wide coming out of there. Is he going to get a slowdown? Looks like he's safe. He's staying ahead. And unfortunately for Boss Slob, did not get the traction out of the corner. Now they come up to the braking for the first of the chicanes into Forza. Can he gain any time back? He takes his nose out, looks to the inside. Wow, he's late on the brakes. My goodness. I thought he was just playing a psychological move. And is Marco serving that slowdown, or we see just that early on the brakes? That was unusual, Sean.
Yeah, boy, I don't know, Joe. You know, sometimes you try to run out that time penalty, and but boy, that was really hard to tell there. Unexplained slowdown there.
If that was just the natural breaking point for Marco Kika, I think he might want to take some notes from Boss Slob on where to slow the car down. That was amazing. He was what, about 4 car lengths back?
That's what it looked like to me. Yeah, about 4 car lengths back, Joe.
Well, he made the right move looking to the inside when he did then. So let's go to 4th overall. Philip Lake has Clayton McLeod on him once again. He's caught back up to the UK&I driver. Looks to the inside. Is this heading down to Indianapolis? Yes, it is. We're going to see side-by-side action into that kink. I think Clayton, no, he knows better than to try that as he backs out of it. Boss Slob. Oh, Slob has a major problem. He was coming up to the traffic. Stephen Jones and the Audi ahead of him.
Oh, he gets a... It looked like he got a little bit of grass there coming off on exit.
Wow.
And it went into a slide.
Kika narrowly got by him. This looks like turbo lag to me. Whoop, there it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought he had clipped the grass, but I think you're absolutely right, Joe. It sounded like turbo lag.
A lot of damage on the front, and he actually took a tow, so that is going to cause him a lot of time of waiting. Meanwhile, we're back on this battle for 4th. As they work their way towards the Ford chicane, Philip Lake and the white machine in front, Clayton McLeod in the Momo. Was that a Ferrari that he's trying to imitate with that paint scheme? I'm trying to remember what the Momo was on. Because they run traditional paint schemes on these cars, running their own special championship, the VCR Championship, appropriately named in this series.
Joe, I mean, certainly Ferrari colors. I don't remember from a historic standpoint, though. I really don't remember. It's slipping my mind here.
It's okay as we watch them continue their way around. Only 7 minutes left to go. I'm guessing we're only going to get about 2 more laps after they cross the line here.
Maybe 3. It's going to be close.
Keith Ritchie has now extended his lead to 10 seconds over Rob Olenek. He's looking very safe unless he makes any mistakes during this race. Yeah, you can see the gap on your screen for our GTP leaders. Olenek has not been able to drop Steve Bycroft, who's keeping him in check. Oh, and Philip Lake had a problem. There was contact.
Oh, okay, yeah. Clayton McLeod.
Clayton McLeod much stronger on the brakes and just gets into the back of him. Almost turns that Toyota around. Both of them managing to get going again, though.
Yeah, it looked like a couple of bumper cars up there for a moment. Ouch. That bends them up a little bit, and the time lost.
Is that going to make some of these faster corners very difficult as we watch one more angle from the gearbox there of Lake? Is that going to make them a handful in places like the Porsche Curves if you mess up the aero on these Nissans?
Yeah, you're going to need to back that up just a little bit, and quite frankly, just slow down a little bit through there because the aero there will hurt you. You need that downforce through those Porsche Curves, Joe.
At a side-by-side battle with John Keefe and Bruce Bouchard. This is for 10th position. I think Keefe is going to come out on top as they work their way through the Michelin chicane. As he accelerates away nice and cleanly, give that number 10 to John Keefe. Or is it? As now Bouchard has got the draft. He decides to back out of it before they get into the kink entering the Mulsanne corner. Well, our top 2 in the GTO, Sean, have separated.
Yeah.
But when we say separated, it's still within a second.
Well, and it's slowdown penalties that have plagued Ove Trengrade. He's digging so hard to try and get back to Stradbeck. He keeps costing himself. And he keeps making it up on the straightaways here. I feel like he's got a little bit more straightaway speed than Stradbeck's got, but now Stradbeck trying to drive a little defensive and break up that draft a bit. You see Ove weaving there, trying to stay dead in the tracks. Stradbeck, that's the only chance he's got. Here we go through the Forza chicane. Stradbeck just having a really, really nice exit off there, and Trengrade again loses a lot exit off.
The Scandinavian of Trengrade possibly needing to tidy things up. He needs to hit his marks if he wants to have a chance at this. Over the radio, as we were talking about this battle, Ben Lafter did get on and tell Andy Pears that he was blinking, letting him know that it's getting worse. Not what Ben Lafter wants if this is going to be a close battle down to the final lap.
Well, they're in a battle. I mean, indeed. And that is, boy, that's really, really tough situation for Lafter to have to deal with. Here he comes.
He's closing in, but he decides not to stick his nose in. McLeod is stationary. What happened to McLeod? This is... I'm trying to figure out what portion of the track. Oh, it's just coming out of the Forest S's. Apologizes to Marco Kika since he came back to the racing line. Oh, just lost it. Almost caught it. And there she goes. Oh, wow. Actually made a little bit of contact with the Armco. Might have gotten away with it, though. Side by side for that GTO lead once again.
Yeah, Trengrade just taking it back.
Down into Indianapolis. Slipstreamed on by. Stradbeck, falls in line behind him. They're now 12 seconds ahead of Dexter Castro. They can fight as much as they want. They're not likely to be caught here.
Yeah, it's been just kind of a steady trip back there for Castro with no drafting help. He's again just been stuck out there all by himself, just like Eric Carmen was in 1976. Joe,
And something happened to
what happened? Trengurade with trouble there.
struggling to get the car in gear. Now, after what happened to Clayton McLeod, you'd think that Philip Blake was free to go. Well, unfortunately, Philip had his own problem not too long ago, maybe a minute ago, under the Dunlop Bridge. Put it in the wall. We're going to see if we can find the replay here. This is out of the first chicane. Oh, it looks like it's a little bit farther back. Here we go. Trying to find the power. Grip is not there. Rear comes around. And there's the tire barrier.
And not where you want to be, obviously.
Well, he's not taking a tow if the car's still driving, even though he lost it to Philip Lake. Actually, he is going to lose another position as Pedro Fiera now breezes by into 6. And I think he might be caught by John Hill before all is said and done. With a minute and a half left, Keith Ritchie is coming up to the forward chicane now. The white flag will be waving. Through this two-part chicane, cleanly out of there. Doesn't even use the exit curbs. This is a cool and calm Keith Ritchie, the Club West driver, all by his lonesome, just minding the gap at this point.
Well, Joe, the great battle we had back here in the GTOs, it's gone. Strodbeck now up about 5 seconds. Ove, I talked about it in the last broadcast this morning. The poor guy just doesn't seem to have any luck, man. It's always something, and he gets jumped up and bit by a bad shift there and loses all that time, and Strodbeck is running away now. Castro's still going to be, Dexter going to still be a little bit too far back to catch Ove, I think, here in what will probably be the last lap when they come around. Indeed, it will. But that your top three pretty solid right now. It's a long way back to Piers and Laughter, who are still in a battle.
In fact, this might be the last lap for our GTO leaders because Keith Ritchie is closing on them. They're both on the Mulsanne, and I think Strodbeck is just coming up to the Mulsanne corner right now. There we can see Keith Ritchie heading up towards the Michelin chicane, so we might just catch him in time.
Boy, but that's going to be close, Joe.
Well, Strodbeck's got the time. If he doesn't want to do an extra lap with a 4-second gap, he could slow down a little bit and let him through if he needed.
You know, if he had a good man on his box, he'd be watching that for him and let him just focus on the driving there, Joe.
Now, who would that good man be?
No idea. It's certainly not me. Not me today, anyway.
Oh, Ben Laughter and Andy Pear side by side right now. This is coming out of the Mulsanne corner, I believe. This is for position between the two of them. It looks like Laughter's going to come out ahead. But right now they've got our leader coming through. This is going to complicate things.
This is tense. This is tense.
Are they going to go side by side through? Ben Laughter backs out before Indianapolis. Ritchie doesn't have to press the issue. He's still got 12 seconds. He could wait for a straightaway to get by these guys. Out of Arnage. Keith Ritchie just waiting for a good time to sneak through. Gets by Ben Laughter, and he's going to get Andy Pears now. This is for 4th in class.
Strodbeck gonna have to, and Trengray gonna have to go back around again, Joe.
One more lap for them as Keith Ritchie now comes through karting. The right-hander slowing the car down for the left-hander. Need to be careful about not getting the slowdown penalty by going wide. Through Maison Blanche he comes. He's led since the drop of the green. Keith Ritchie has not been bothered by anyone as he comes through the Ford chicane. Round 1 here at Le Mans for the Kamel GT Series is going to go to Keith Ritchie.
Great drive by Ritchie.
So that brings us Brian Strodbeck, now working his way through the Forest S's. Rob Olenek is going to be your second place driver in the GTP. Steve Bycroft going to round out your podium there. And top 3 in the GTOs are still out and running. Little bit of an underwhelming end to what was a great battle there for most of the race, unless Strodbeck makes a major mistake. Still 4 seconds between them, Sean.
He better not make a major mistake. We'll never let him hear the end of it, Joe. Yeah, you know what? Really great drive by Trent Garade. I mean, you know, it's a shame he had that little problem there with the shift, and that battle disappeared. But boy, for 2/3 of this race, those two fought tooth and nail, back and forth, never made contact with each other, Joe. Very respectful there, but those two great drivers, the Scandinavian, the man from Cleveland, battling it out, gave us a good battle. And, you know, the driver of the race, though, might go to Dexter Castro, because honestly, all he did was sit back there, take care of business, and if he'd had somebody to work with a draft, he'd have been in that battle up there with him for sure, because he had great pace the whole race.
A podium for Dexter is certainly nothing to be ashamed of. Unfortunately, with this being Le Mans and it being a long extra lap, I've actually got to take off because I've got to go work the MWT broadcast here in a few moments. Sean will take you to the end.
All right, Joe, we will get it. Thanks, buddy. We're getting through the Muslan corner one last time. There goes Brian Strodbeck. Just behind him there, you do see second and third place, Ove Trent Grade and Dexter Castro. Castro just getting out of that Muslan corner. Strodbeck, full speed down in Indianapolis. Don't think there's much Ove can do now. He has done a good job of closing it back up. Now got it down to under 4 seconds. He was as far back as about 6 seconds at one point. But Brian taking care of business here. Ove doing everything he can. He's still digging. Strodbeck in command, though. Tell you what, made up a lot of spots just in the first lap. Got himself up into the top 4. And then he got to work on the leaders. And, well, we've seen it. And he took care of business just enough. Got to do it through the Porsche curves. Oh, get the car a little offline there. A little bit of a trick on this last lap. Strodbeck getting out of the Porsche curves. Into Corvette. One last time, we get down to the Ford chicane. Trent Gray did everything he could to try and catch him. It's not going to be enough. Last clean pass. There we go. Brian Strodbeck going to be your winner here today in the GTO class in the Kamel GT Series. Dexter Castro going to take care. Ove Trent Gray going to take care of second place. Dexter Castro making his way across the line. Now third place. Dexter Castro gets a podium finish and stays out of trouble whilst doing it. Great job by him. Everybody has made their way around this track. We're going to take a quick break, come back with the results, maybe talk to a couple people, and wrap this thing up. Thanks for watching here on GSRC. Welcome back to the iRacing Camel GT Series here. Big split race here today for you folks. Let's run down the results. 30-minute race. Saw Keith Ritchie, your winner here overall, Nissan GTP class, and big race for him. He kind of ran away with it, folks. Rob Olenek, second. Steve Bycroft going to finish third. Marco Kika, fourth today. Pedro Ferreira, fifth. John Hill, 6th. Dave Peterson, 7th. John Keefe, 8th. Bruce Bouchard, 9th. Philip Blake, going to finish 10th. 11th. Going to go to Hideki Koivitso. Clayton McLeod, going to finish 12th. 13th, going to go to Michael Kopak. Brian Strodbeck, going to be your winner in the GTO class. He'll finish 14th. Ove Trengerade, great fight in him today. We talked about it. That's 15th. Dexter Castro, 16th. Andy Purr, 17th. 18th, going to go to Ben Laughter. Brian Shanahan, 19th. 20th, Corey Ott. Go down to 21st. And you've got Alexander Giesler, who had some trouble early. Stephen Jones, 22nd. David Beatty, 23rd. Boss Slob, another guy, unfortunately had some trouble today. 24th. Jonathan Nolan, 25th. 26th, Eduardo Martinez. 27th, Jonathan Beekoff. And 28th, rounding out this field, and basically got off to a bad start and was not able to make any of it up. Alexander Topfer gonna finish 28th. And one of the guys we can definitely talk to about the race he had out here is Ben Laughter. Ben, what a race today. You guys get it out on Le Mans. And, the first thing I want to ask you, did you have a good time?
Well, how can you not have a good time? I'm in an Audi 90. Yeah, I loved it, man. It was good. Not a boring race. I was battling with Eduardo early, and then Andy most of the rest of the race, and it was tooth and nail.
Yeah, and Andy was having some connection issues. So, talk just a second. What's that like when you're competing for a position and having to deal with that?
I just try to give a dude a little extra room. You probably saw me laying off, going into the braking zones, and just sort of being patient, taking care of my tires too. I was hoping to make a last lap move on them, but Keith passed us going into the Porsche curves and put us on the white flag, going into my weakest part of the course. So, you just try to give the guy some distance and find a really good spot. He was driving pretty defensively, so I knew I would have to get a good spot for him.
Now, Ben, are you a setup guy?
I'm okay at them. I have teammates who are better. This setup was put together by Jason Quinn, one of my teammates, and it's pretty good. I thought it was good until Ove and Brian showed up. Jeez.
Yeah. Well, I guess my question is Joe and I were talking about the crest down the Muslin Straight. Is there any way you could set up for that? Is there something you could do to maybe make the car not skate quite as much?
I don't think so. It's the nature of this car. It's so boxy. At high speeds, this happens at most sport. This happens anywhere where there's a long straight where you get up all the way into fifth gear. This car just moves around a lot. And whatever that grading is on the road, when it crests at the center, it just grabs the car and forces it 6 feet offline. So I don't think that's a setup thing. I think that's just the nature of the car.
Yeah. Well, and certainly in the testing I threw down in it, it's wicked fun. You constantly feel like you're flying literally by the seat of your pants when you're heading down the Muslin Straight.
Yeah.
Now next week, of course, this is the biggest circuit we'll run this season, but next week presents more challenges for you. You're looking forward to getting there.
Yeah. Where were we going again?
Next week, we are heading to Spa. That's right. Spa. Yes, we're going to Spa next week. Yeah.
Another long straight to move around on. So, absolutely. Yeah. Spa's a fun track. I hear that they've loosened up the off-track limits there, so maybe we can get a little more racy and have some fun. I like Spa.
You know what? And we didn't even go there, but did you have any off-track slowdowns today?
I screwed up the start. I was trying to give people extra room going through the Ford chicanes at the very beginning, and then I think I fell back to like 8th by the time we got to turn 1 because I was serving a slowdown. But I believe that was my only situation. I was 0 incidents, I believe.
Well, hey, great drive from you today. We appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. We'll see you next week, Ben.
Yeah, thanks, you guys. Great job again. I look forward to next week.
All right, and that is Ben Laughter. He in the GTO class today, comes home with a 5th place finish. Let's take a quick moment and talk to one of our GTP drivers, and I think we have caught up with Mike Kopak. How you doing, Mike?
Oh, okay. Not my best race.
This is a very challenging track. That Nissan, you really, really want to push hard in that car, don't you?
Yeah, especially for me, the tough part's the back section there before the start finish. I unfortunately got right up Hideki's rear end and didn't realize how close we were to the chicanes, and he hit the brakes, and I just wasn't expecting it. Plowed into him, and that pretty much wrecked both of our races. I really, really apologize for that.
Well, you know what? I'm glad they put this track on the schedule, but I guess I'm also glad that they put it at the beginning of the season. So there's plenty of time to recover from that. Expect to see you next week.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Excellent. Well, listen, Mike, great drive today. Good talking to you. We'll talk to you at Spa.
All right. Great. Thanks, guys.
All right, and that was Michael Kopak. He finishes 13th today. And real quickly here, I think we got Dexter Castro. We can talk to him. Dexter had quite an exciting run, but it was rather lonely out there on track. I said you had the drive of the race, Dexter. You kept her clean.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. I think this season, at least in my time on GSRC, is going to be the adventure of Dexter doesn't know what the heck he's doing in the car he's driving.
Well, I think your biggest enemy here today is you didn't have anybody to work with. Yeah,
I don't know if I could have held the leader's draft even if I hadn't gotten the slowdown on the first lap. But on the first lap, I was actually just being too cautious and wound up rather than getting one of the many slowdowns on exit, I actually cut the inside of a corner just because I over-rotated, playing it a little too safe. But I guess that wound up helping me dodge a wreck in the next corner, so I guess it all works out. But would have liked to have maybe had a chance to hold their draft, but I don't think I could have done anything with Brian or I forget who else was up there with him, even if I were in the draft.
Yeah, it was the very fast Scandinavian Ove Trendgrade. And but Dexter, listen, you get a podium finish, first race of the season. We head to Spa next, get a little bit more time to work on the setup. You think maybe you'll be a challenger there?
I don't know. I mean, I really don't know this car well enough to know whether I'll be able to find more time. I imagine I must be able to find a little more time out of it. But it's just need more seat time, need more practice. I don't know how much I can devote to this series, but I hopefully I'll find the time, and because I've been wanting to race in this series for a couple seasons now, just haven't been able to.
Well, I certainly hope, selfishly, I hope we see you again next week, and safe travels to you, my friend. Thanks a lot for talking to us.
No problem, Sean.
All right, congratulations to Dexter Castro. He takes home a podium finish today, and well, folks, big race out there today. It was a lot of fun. Great way to kick off the season, like I said. But we've got to get done with this one, and we want to thank the members of the Kamel GT community. They put this together with the tremendous help of Rob Olenek, and we've got to thank him because he is a big part of what happens here and what you see every week. So, Rob, thank you very, very much. We want to thank the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcasts listed here on your screen. Additional thanks do go out to Eric Ekholm and Casey Lalonde, who provide our wonderful music. You can see right there on screen how to get a hold of them for more of their great work. I want to thank Joe today, our fearless leader, Joe Peak. Amjad behind the scenes, twisting and tweaking the dials. The great Dougie Beard. Those amazing camera shots that we see here on every broadcast. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com, or you can check us out on social media. Yes, Twitter, we're there at GSR Channel, or on Facebook, type in Global Sim Racing Channel, all one word. We'll pop right up, I promise. Next race, we head to Spa, Francorchamps. Next Saturday, June 24th, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.